The FBI has prevented a gun-for-hire murder plot against Donald Trump. Joining me live is Washington Examiner White House correspondent Chrisitan Datoc. Look, it's a scary thing, isn't it? Security around Donald Trump.
You know, it is, Tim, but it's something we've gotten used to in these months during the 2024 campaign. Of course, there was the formal assassination attempt on Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. There was the averted shooting that Secret Service was able to foil at Mar-a-Lago. And then, of course, we've had these two murder-for-hire plots. And this one, if you take the U.S. government at its word, it appears to originate with Iran. And obviously, Donald Trump vowed to be a staunch ally of Israel. It seems like the war in the Middle East, the dovetailing effects of this 2024 election are being felt there, certainly, as Iran appears to try and take Trump off the board before he can retake office.
The challenges are going to be there, aren't they, ever present for security forces inside the US?
Certainly, and it's something, again, I think the American electorate hasn't necessarily had a focus on until these assassination attempts on Donald Trump came into light. And one thing that internal reviews by the Department of Homeland Security have unearthed is that the United States Secret Service was woefully unprepared to handle these assassination attempts. There's a level of groupthink at the body that the Biden administration said they weren't comfortable with. And so there will be reform, certainly, from this new incoming Republican administration. Security is especially tight, especially in a time where the United States finds itself embroiled in a number of conflicts overseas, albeit indirectly.
Absolutely. Now, meanwhile, Trump has started to give some jobs out.
That's right. We've got the first big hire for Donald Trump's transition back to his second term in office, Susie Wiles. She was the co-chair of the campaign along with Chris LaCivita. She will be Trump's new White House chief of staff. Now, not only is Wiles a veteran Florida operative who helped Donald Trump win the state back in 2016, she will be the first woman to be the White House chief of staff, an incredibly high stress, high turnover position. If you look at Donald Trump's first term in office, he ran through 3 official chiefs of staffs and 1 acting chief. So we don't know how long Ms. Wiles will stay in the position. But what we do know is that she ran an incredibly effective campaign. She was able to marshal all of these warring parties within Trump world and have them directed towards ensuring the former president's political comeback.
So much is said on the election campaign by everybody, and it doesn't matter where you are, anywhere in the world. This whole immigration thing, this whole deportation thing comes with a lot of challenges, doesn't it, for Donald Trump? Because when you think about it, there's so many people inside the US working in big parts of the economy when it comes to hospitality and other parts of areas owned by big organisations. How does he possibly unstitch this and live up to the expectations of some of the words that he said in and around that whole idea of deporting people and how they police what is a very difficult border?
Well, there's a lot of factors at play here, Tim. The first and foremost is the formal processes for deporting illegal immigrants that are already on the books at DHS. The Biden administration had slow-walked some of these rules that were on the books. And, you know, of course, there are a number of sanctuary cities, especially in states like California and Texas, that refuse to cooperate with federal agencies when it comes to deporting agencies. So the first task the Trump administration has is to make sure those roadblocks go out of the way. The second part of this is something that we've heard from policy experts, immigration reform experts, specifically over the past year. Donald Trump appears to be formulating a plan to partner with private industries to sort of expedite this deportation process. And then, of course, like you mentioned, there is the economic factor to think about. How will this play with not only the U.S. economy, but our trading partners as well? But I do think that a lot of this rhetoric should be sort of viewed as a rhetorical negotiations tool. We have heard from both U.S. allies and the Trump team that since the former president won re-election, some of these migrant caravans that travel up through South and Central America towards the United States, they have turned around. So much in the same way that Trump talks about tariffs partially as a negotiating tool with allies across the globe, I do expect this extreme stance to sort of be a deterrent before any of these migrants can actually reach the United States.
A lot's been made of the Republicans winning the Senate and quite possibly the House and the mandate going forward. One thing that hasn't been articulated too much is just how tight it is, Christian. It's pretty heavily bureaucratic, isn't it, when you come to the US Congress?
It certainly is. And in the House, you need a 218-seat majority to win, to hold a majority. And Republicans are marching towards that mark right now, but it's not quite over yet. There are some races out in Washington state in particular that Democrats are hoping they can hold on to and potentially flip a few seats in California that went red during the 2022 midterm elections. But again, even if Donald Trump does command both the Senate and the House, it's not a guarantee that all of his policies will be pushed through Congress. You just have to look back to the first Trump administration to see that when Republicans controlled a supermajority in Congress, yes, Donald Trump was able to pass his tax cuts and job acts, but he didn't get the rest of his agenda through. He wasn't able to build this southern border wall that we had, talked about at length on the campaign trail. I am interested to see just how effective the second Donald Trump presidency will be in terms of governance, if he has full control of the Senate, if he has full control of the House. Because, again, you'd think he would learn from mistakes, but it's American politics. And like you mentioned, everything is so tight, there is very little margin for error.
Let's have a look at the Democrats and Kamala Harris. Basically, in 2012, when Barack Obama came through, the Republicans said that we need an autopsy, basically, to look at our party. Is that where the Democrats are at the moment? We saw Joe Biden with the obvious decline in his cognitive ability in that first debate, the handover to Kamala Harris. It has been so disrupted.
Well, I'm not sure if we're quite at the point where the Democratic Party is ready to look in the mirror and make a real change about how they handle this election. But the finger pointing and the blame game has certainly already started. You have fringe maverick figures like Bernie Sanders saying that the Democratic leadership abandoned working class voters of all races. And that's why you saw that voting bloc swing towards Donald Trump, even though they have historically voted Democrat for more than 30 years. Then you have party bosses like Jamie Harrison, the chairman of the DNC, saying that that is absolutely not true. The DNC turned out grassroots organizing groups. And again, like this ultimately was a problem of racism in this country. People didn't want a black woman to be president. These are sort of competing views for the future of the Democratic Party. Should they sort of shrink their mandate and focus on these economic issues, a la Bill Clinton in the 1990s, the last time the United States balanced its federal budget, for the record? Or should they sort of extend towards the progressive wing of the party and hit on some of these issues that younger, further West Coast voters want to see, like voting rights, like gun violence reform? It is a debate that the party must have, because if they don't make a change, they might just be lost to the annals of history, like the Federalist Party or the Whig Party, parties that, again, people here in America probably aren't even particularly familiar with unless they took advanced civics classes.
Absolutely, Christian. Well, we're going to be sure of one thing. Plenty of news coming out of the United States on a daily basis for the next 4 years. Good to chat.
Thanks as always.